Benjamin Boyce, and I'm outside, and I don't know if this is going to work. I'm using a variety of different tools to get this to happen, and so I don't even know if they're all working. So once people pop in, let me know how the sound is, and I'll fix that. And this is just a chill live stream. I'm not going to be doing anything terribly upsetting, I hope. I mean, other than dashing your expectations, disappointing the heck out of you, which is something that I haven't done in a while. You know, you need to disappoint people every so often, and it feels like I haven't disappointed anybody recently, but I know that's not true. So the world is feeling weird today. I was doing research. I'm trying to finish up the complete Evergreen story, and it was planned as 24 episodes. And I think I messed up a little bit because there's not enough. I have too much material to force into the last 3 episodes. So I have to make very specific decisions. And there's a couple of events that I know have to be in there. And there's no if, ands, or buts that they're in there. There's 2 recordings from local government TV. I can't remember what it's called. And like WTV or something. It's like Washington TV. And Olympia is the capital town. And the capital town of Washington has a lot of government things going on in it. And the government has a TV thing that does government things. Anyway, so there's 2 recordings. One is in June and the other one is in July. And the one in June is, sorry, there's all of a sudden there's a yellow jacket blowing around me. I think it smells my mango stash. So the recording from June is George Bridges and other people show up to the Washington legislature, kind of justice committee and law and justice committee or something like that, specifically having to do with peace and stuff like that. And George Bridges gives this, statement. Other people give this statement, and Stacey Brown's there as the chief of police, and she gives a statement. Other police officers and police chiefs gives a statement, and everybody has a statement. And then the legislature asks them questions. And that it's absolutely important because that is when George Bridges talks to basically the people who not necessarily own, but who ultimately control the purse strings with regards to the ways in which Evergreen exists, because it's a state college. So this is the first time that a governing body interviews him directly, and at least publicly to my knowledge. And I'm going through that today, and his opening statement, it's false. Like it starts off with this completely false premise. He tells this story of events to make it mean not at all what it is. Like, at all. Like, there's no way around the fact that he's lying directly to the legislators. And I was going through that. I just started yelling at the screen. I got so mad. And I couldn't calm down. I was like so inflamed with anger. And I don't necessarily, I'm not really good with emotions because I just get overwhelmed with them. And it just blew a gasket. I didn't get anything done today. I couldn't believe that. And you have to recall, like, I've been like reporting on this for 3 years. And this video I've watched several times, but like having gone through step by step everything that happened at the Evergreen State College in 2017, from 2015 to 2017, laying out everything that's happened during his tenure, during his reign, and then to watch him lie, balded flaccidly, I don't know how to say that one, to the legislature. I just couldn't handle it. And then when they ask him, he's really, and okay, back up a little bit. I've been angry at him in the past, right? And then I let it go, and then I get angry again and I let it go because I don't want to have like a negative, conception of a human being in my mind. Like, so as a human being, I just try to let it go. It's like, okay, this guy made some decisions that I don't agree with. I'll let it go. But like this time, like it was just such a visceral reaction. And you go through and you watch him tell this story that's demonstrably false, and then he gives them answers. They question him, and every question, he's weaseling out of every question and contradicting himself from 30 seconds back or 90 seconds back. And I think that there's certain people who are so good at bending the truth because they rely on the fact that most of us are ceding the benefit of the doubt to them. Like we just, lend people our trust, and then when they do something funny, if you do it in a nice way, if you do this really weird weaseling thing in a very nice, proper way, most people can't really counter it in the present because we're not really necessarily like exposed to that kind of complete denial of reality, And one legislator asked him, could you have left at any time? Could you have left the building at any time during like him being taken hostage, him being followed to the bathroom, him being ordered to stay in a room? And he says, yes, I believe I could, right? And the legislator guy is like, well, the video doesn't really show that. And George Bridges is like, oh yeah, I could have totally left, totally whatever. And the legislator's like, okay, it like this, I don't buy that. But it seems like everybody's so polite in that meeting that you can't really call anybody out. Nobody's called this guy out, except for me. It feels like. I mean, Brett Weinstein and other people like at the college have been frustrated and stuff, but it seems like he has not gotten any accountability whatsoever. At all. It completely. I mean, it's probably not that surprising because this probably happens all the time, but this is a story that I've been working on and like checking and rechecking my facts and like really going through it. And just to see that this thing happened, like all that stuff that the kids did, all the things that like are completely outrageous that the students did, I think it's really cringy and I really disagree with it, but I get nowhere near as much emotionally involved in what they did wrong compared to what I experience when I really like look at what the person in power did wrong. It's insane. Anyways, so I didn't get my work done for the day, so I wanted to do a live stream. Blow off some steam. Check in to you guys. So I'm just going to scroll through the chat, see if there's any questions. And Jessica is being disappointed by my hair. Really? I'm sorry, I'm outside, so the camera settings are all off. The color's weird, I can't really fix it. So this is kind of like my really chintzy ass, like fake Instagram filter. So I apologize for my hair, but I think is it really? That's not that bad today. My hair is not that bad. Yeah, so. Okay, so Marty King Ma 73 writes in, hey Benjamin, listening from Australia. I was wondering if you could comment on why the media seems to be so shockingly biased and pretty much an arm of activism. Okay, so I really did get inordinately upset today about a person in a position of leadership completely mismanaging a crisis and then acting like they're not mismanaging it all. And that's actually happening right now. It's actually happening right now, like both in Seattle and in Portland. It's insane. Like the mayor of Seattle and the mayor of Portland, they're running the George Bridges playbook completely to the letter. You call off the police and you completely ignore the chaos that happens and you blame it on the right wing. Like, that's exactly what Bridges did. And it's exactly what Tom Wheeler, and what's her name up in Seattle are doing. So up in Seattle, the peaceful protesters took over, like they requisitioned 6 square blocks or whatever of downtown Seattle real estate. They ran this Chaz thing that turned into a CHOP thing, and the mayor was like, oh, hands off, let them do it. It's a summer of love. Like, and Trump's like, what the heck are you doing over there? And she's like, oh, get your dirty mitts off of us. We don't need your help. This is a peaceful protest. And then it turns out like 3 people get killed or shot, 5 people get shot. Like, it turns out like there's like literal vigilante justice going on and just drug use and like sexual harassment. It's like total chaos. It's total hell. And the mayor shuts it down. The night after, protesters go to her house, right? And now the protests are happening, and something happened down in Portland where I haven't covered this because I don't want to get this one wrong, and so I have not been covering what's going down in Portland or Seattle. I do not want to get anything wrong. I would rather let the events happen and then pluck through the wreckage. But so far as I know, and this isn't the whole story, some Department of Homeland Security or Border Patrol agents were taking, snatching people that they had thought had done some crimes and questioning them and then letting them go. And the media said that these unmarked police people from the federal government, like this Gestapo, actually, I think, not Gestapo, but Pelosi called them stormtroopers. Pelosi actually described this as some sort of neo-Nazi or like some sort of Nazi event where the federal government was now doing like active war on the citizenship of Portland. But if you look at it in another way, protesters are actually like, they're trying to set this federal building on fire, and they're protesting in front of this federal building, and the federal agents are kind of protecting federal property because the government is not doing anything. Like the mayor has been hands off for years now with Antifa, and Antifa has been like getting more and more violent, and Ted Wheeler's like playing this nimby-pamby George Bridges thing where like the cops like are supposed to be hands off and stuff like that. So what happened last night, it was last night or the night before, is that Ted Wheeler goes to this protest. Before he goes to the protest, he says that he heard news that the federal agents are going to be using live rounds or something. Like the federal agents, I heard news that the federal agents are going to be, like authorized to use deadly force on protesters. And that was his tweet. But then under that tweet, like 2 tweets later, he's like, but this isn't actually going to happen. I got clarification that it's not going to happen. So just total weird way of like breaking that news to people. He goes to the protest and he brings his own bodyguard to the protest, and everybody hates him there. Everybody hates him there. They're like, screw Ted Wheeler and stuff, and he tries to do the namby-pamby thing, but the protesters hate him as much as they hate George Bridges. And the protesters hate the mayor of Seattle as much as they hate Trump. They hate any authority, right? But for some reason, these Democratic mayors think that if they pander to the wolves at the door, they will somehow get that wolf in office, out of office or something. I don't know what game they're playing. I don't know what game they're playing, but it's the same exact skeezy ass bullshit game that George Bridges played. It's the total same playbook. You have this riot that you basically put energy on a city level scale and nationally, but on the city level scale, both Portland and Seattle, everybody was in lockdown, so it fomented a bunch of energy. The energy blows up over a social issue having to do with race. And then the mayors pander to those people while they completely ignore the fact that they've been suppressing the populace, like literally by like destroying their businesses, destroying the economy in the name of safety, in the name of saving us from a virus. And I'm not necessarily commenting on the fact that we should reopen the economy or not, but if you look at the way that the government of Seattle and Portland is treating law-abiding citizens, they're treating law-abiding citizens worse than they're treating criminals, both in Seattle, Portland, and at Evergreen. At Evergreen, they treated the protesters better than they treated every other student. Right? So the law-abiding students, and you see this in the documentary, the ones who get in trouble, like Nolan Lies and Keave, like the like kind of the trollish people, but they are given a in-house arrest order and they follow the order because they're basically law-abiding students. They just happen to be, mouthy brats and pretty clever ones at that. They're the ones who they get put into lockdown, and so do the protesters. But the protesters ignore the lockdown order, and they just go and do what they want. They roam around and terrorize people on campus. So maybe that's kind of why I was so freaking pissed off about George Bridges and stuff. But the only way that I can make sense of why the media is playing to the protesters is that they really don't want Trump to win. They do not want Trump to win. They cannot stand him for a number of different reasons, and I can't necessarily detail all those reasons, but it seems to me that they're gambling that if they can provoke a reaction from Donald Trump, then they can show him to be the fascist that they've pretended that he has been since before he even got into office. If they can provoke him into doing something violent, they can say that their fears were true the whole while, that we actually elected a fascist president in office. So I think that's just the game plan all along, because they want people in office that cater to their desires, right? And who does the mainstream media's desires align with? Their owners. And who does the Democratic, the guy who's going to be elected, Joe Biden guy? He is, well, he's basically a figurehead, so he's going to give them whatever they want. Joe Biden is going to give them whatever they want, right? So if they can make Trump do something egregious in the eyes of the normal, everyday American, or get enough footage of something tied to him that is ugly, they can blast that across the airwaves and get people not to vote him back in. That's my only take on the matter. I hope my audio is doing fine. So if I seem a little cooped up, it's because I am cooped up today. So I apologize for being a little antsy if I'm being a little antsy. Don't take it personally. Jason Van Epps, thanks for the super chat. You've been killing it with the interviews. Check out Conservative Guy and Kruger with a C on YouTube. I'd love to see you talk with them. Kingface too, but I'm sure he's already on your radar, lol. I will take a screenshot of that and look those people up. I haven't been interviewing too many YouTuber people. I like going outside of the YouTube land. I like actually like academic, like go onto academic Twitter and find interesting people from there. I think that there's a lot of academics that that don't get the time of day, that really have a lot to offer us. Let's put it this way. There are people in academia who put a lot of time and effort into studying things that are of actual vital importance to us. So if you can locate those people and bring them to the fore, I think that their knowledge is great to bear. You know, trying to bring people onto YouTube that aren't already onto YouTube. But it's good to cross-pollinate in the YouTube land, for sure. It's good for my audience, good for their audience too. I was pleasantly surprised with how the trigonometry interview went. That was like one of the earliest interviews I've done. Like we had to do it at 8 a.m. my time because they have a live stream nighttime in their Britain land. And so I was kind of jazzed up, and I kind of knew that we were going to talk about social justice as a religion. And I think that social justice as a religion is already, I've been saying that for a while, like it's kind of like, that's a tired trope, and there's much more eloquent, smarter people with more, esteem by the general public than I who are making that point. So I kind of wanted to like get in there and try to like push that a little bit out of the where it has been or where it could potentially be stuck, because why say the same thing over and over again? And I was pleasant. They got me, they evoked me, and I think I said a couple of things. That I'm not particularly ashamed of. Radio silence. Radio silence. Yeah, so what I'm going to do while I'm outside is that in a half an hour, I'm going to get my Komodo grill going. And I got a bucket of charcoal over there. I'm going to put in that guy, and I got a whole chicken that I brined. Like first thing in the morning, and then I pulled it out and I patted it down with a towel, and now it's sitting in the fridge with a dash of some rub on it, getting that skin to be a little dehydrated so it gets nice and crispy in my Komodo grill. The Kamado, not Komodo, not like the dragon, but it's Kamado. These grills are on a Japanese design, and they have an incredible amount of control over the airflow, right? So the things that cause fire to happen are fuel and that charge, the fire itself, fuel and air, right? So what you have here is this really tight little grate on top, and then this grate on the bottom, and you can really control the temperature of the grill. And plus, it's pretty airtight too, so you get to smoke. And I've been going through different smoking woods. This has been my hobby for the summer. This is what, like, okay, the world's falling apart, but at least I have a grill, you know, like true, like just I'm pulling upon my deep centrist archetype, you know, and I come out here after a day of dealing with the stuff I deal with, whether it's wonderful people or craziness on the internet, and I get this thing going, and I've been working through different woods like hickory, mesquite, apple, cherry, but my favorite has been pecan. Like pecan wood is absolutely amazing. Like the taste is so phenomenal. Like this has just been a great gift for me to like have this amount of flavor in my life. I can't understate how beautiful and transcendent that has been, and somewhat therapeutic, you know, since we live in a therapeutic culture. This has been my healing moment, bringing meats to a juicy, smoked state of edibility. It's been great. So that's why I'm outside. Bobby Broadway says, no joke, I asked Cracker Barrel, I know I'm a pinky, how they grilled chicken tasted so good, and they said soy sauced and cast iron. Sorry to read that out of context, but it's still about food. You can't go wrong. Like socioeconomic problems, policing, crime, discrimination, group analysis, you know, historical acts of injustice, remedial attempts to solve the problems of the world. Those things are really difficult to be dealing with. I mean, you're just dealing with this contentious soup of chaos, and you come out here and you know if you did it right or not, right? And I've made mistakes with my Komodo grill. One thing I've absolutely learned, don't reuse wood chips. If you throw wood chips in there and you want to reuse the charcoal, you got to shake that basket. Get those old wood chips out. Those wood, it's really flavorful, but once it goes char, you don't want that flavor in there. That has ruined a couple of meals, and I have to be a little bit of ashamed that it took me 2 times to really realize that you don't want any old wood in there. Always use fresh smoking wood. Now, some people just throw the chips in there. Some people soak the chips. I've tried it both ways. I've also done this where I get the chips and I soak them in hot water so they'll soak faster. And then I put them in tin foil and I poke some, that smells so good. And I poke holes in the tin foil and then very slowly the flavor is released. Actually, there's a lot of good chips in here. It smells really good. Anyway, so there's certain things that you just know if they're good or not. You know, and of course, some people will find good what you don't, but you kind of know, at least for yourself and the person that you live with, if you did a good or bad job. Like there's just this very definite feedback. Like this is not about me catering to a fan base. It's not about me selling out. It's not about me, making a huge error or causing a big stir on the internet. It's none of that stuff. It's just, did that pork go in the right direction, and what did I do to not make it go further in the right direction, right? Quantifiable and yet artistic, and you get to eat it. Anyways, I'm going to read Bobby Broadway. I don't recognize you, Bobby Broadway, but you seem to be mouthing off in my comments tonight, and you wrote, I bet Benjamin has seen a UFO but does not like to talk about it. Is this true? I've never encountered extraterrestrial life. I have had some very, very weird dreams, though, about substrates of consciousness and reality that are probably akin to a UFO revelation. But those things are so subjectively painted in images and, a lot of phenomenal experience that I would have to like erect an entire storytelling voice to get us there. So maybe one day I'll be in the mood to get us into, deep reality dreams with Benjamin, like my own take on the quantum universe or something like that, but not tonight. But no, I have not encountered any extraterrestrial alloys or anything like that flying around in the world. Seen some lights, and I've heard some sounds, but nothing that concrete. Monsieur Calero does the same with brewing beer. Are you talking about like totally getting off on like experimenting with this wonderful contraption that turns like some sort of living entity into your own living entity? I haven't done any beer brewing. I'm not really inspired to do that, but maybe I will at some point. The cool thing about this particular porch is that I will be able to grill all winter long. The weather in Olympia, it can get nasty, but mostly it's just rain. It's not like impossible to deal with. And I have a shed, so I'll probably be using this grill all year round. So I won't necessarily pick up another edible hobby, I don't think. I shouldn't put this up, but I want to read this out loud to see what happens to it. Sorry about this microphone, by the way. Let's fix it. Sorry if that sounds bad. Okay. Strontium X nitrate. I don't even know if that's a legal compound, writes, Benjamin use of words to express himself is akin to making love to the language. It's the language of love. I love sounds. I do like my voice a lot, but it's mostly my microphones. I am either articulate or not articulate, and more bendy or less bendy with the ways that I formulate the language and stuff, but I actually can't make sense without sensuality involved. Like, I lose focus on what I'm trying to say if I'm not really engaged with the tactacular, like the texture of how I'm saying it. Like, that it really actually helps me to really pay attention to rhythm and tonality in order to try to formulate something that is expressively decipherable to other people as something that hits them and that they can accept as something that they understand or don't understand. So that's just a way to say that sensuality for me is actually very foundational to how I make sense. That's just how I'm put together. Probably because I broke my brain at some point in my life, and this is how I kind of like snaggle around on the intellectual side of communication, is to like kind of turn it into some sort of like caressing motion for myself and others. I don't know. I'm just talking now. The Acorn writes, Olympia is a cool place. I hope the Northwest can find their way and stop respecting the disrespect that is going on in their communities right now. I'm not betting on it, though, especially in Portland's case. It is really, really sad. It is really, 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 really sad. And, you know, I moved to Portland in 2000, and I moved to Olympia in 2010. And my first few years in Olympia were spent half in Portland, half in Olympia. And I've been in this area for, I guess, 20 years now. Yeah, actually, I moved here almost precisely 20 years ago. How about that? And in Portland, I had this sense, at a certain point, after being there for a couple of years, I had this sense that it was this really weird bubble. It was really kind of removed from reality. It was really a very blessed, very peaceful, very nice place. And there was just a lot of very nice people there. And a lot of people that were so into being nice that they didn't weaponize it yet. They just really tried to innovate niceness. And I was there during a period of innovating niceness. And I think it was during somewhere between the second Bush term and the first Obama term. But I got this sense that people were a little too disconnected from reality, and they were starting to form conceptions of reality that were a little too far away from a balanced view of life as something that's not just nice, right? I think it kind of rested on its nice laurels, and especially for whatever reason over the last, 5 years. It was before Trump. But something set in, something took over. And so it's really interesting to watch Seattle and Olympia and Portland undergo this kind of abusive relationship with a very vocal, very potent, but very short-sighted and very small-minded section of the population and cater to them. What happened I shared this in my community tab on YouTube, but a couple weeks ago, somebody that I knew shared with me that a small business owner was buying Black Lives Matter signs to put into his window because every night that he'd go back to open his shop, you know, that's suffering because of the response to the pandemic, every night he goes back there, or every morning that he's gone back there, the previous night the window had been broken, and somebody told him that he should probably put a Black Lives Matter sign in his window so that the window would stop being broken. And so he did that. And he's like, I don't care. I really do care about justice and stuff, but I feel like I'm being strong-armed into that. So I posted a screen cap of, you know, this secondhand story about this Olympia business owner who's feeling strong-armed into catering to a mob. And this is not an isolated incident. This is what's happening in Seattle and Portland and Olympia. I posted that on, social media. And, you know, because the mayor is basically responsible for, you know, ensuring that this stuff doesn't happen because, you know, the mayor's basically responsible for how the police respond to things. And what happened when I posted that little story to Twitter is that a local anarchist Black Lives Matter collective showed it and shared it and said, see, all of this virtue signaling, they don't really believe it. They really don't believe us. So we need to redouble our efforts, basically, to terrorize these people. And why it's okay for those people to just do that and to act that way. And that we don't have a conception of drawing a line in the sand. We don't have a conception out here right now. We don't have a conception of authority. And I don't think it has much to do. I think one interpretation that I have a reflex to, but I really don't think that it's necessarily the right interpretation, but there is some sort of softening, there is some sort of feminization of authority out here. But I don't want to over-rely on that because I think that it might trip up too many people as kind of a sexist way of conceiving of things. But there is definitely this over-caring, coddling, allowing of people to walk all over you as a leader and then proceed to walk all over everybody else, right? And what happened at the Evergreen State College is that George Bridges allowed people to walk all over him, and then the people who walked all over him proceeded to walk all over everybody else. And that's just what happens. So we have soft leadership. And I bring up the to more serve than protect, and to take a very negative stance towards any sort of hardness. Any sort of line in the sand is potentially damaging to those who cross that line. And because of the potential of damage of crossing that line, they're trying to make that line more and more flexible, right? And I understand the desire to want to make the lines of society more and more flexible, to allow people to, you know, kind of make mistakes and then grow from their mistakes. But there has to be consequences. There definitely has to be consequences. And 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch, the escalators escalate their violation of that line until there's no more line left. Until you have a mayor, like Ted Wheeler did, go to a protest, be verbally abused by everybody there, and then stand there in clouds of tear gas after the police have warned everybody repeatedly to get out of the area, right? And he's still there. Like, it just completely defies belief that we take these people seriously. And it's just so sad because there's so much untapped potential. There's so much untapped potential in everybody involved in this, in all of those protesters, in every single one of the Antifa, in every single one of the Black Lives Matter people, in every single one of the Patriot Prayer people, in every single one of the people who are showing up on the streets and wasting their time doing really loud, raucous activities in order to prove some sort of point. All of that energy is not being funneled into anything other than lights and sounds. All of that stuff it's the worst layer of history. It's just noise. There's this other journalist, Michael Tracy, I believe his name is. He went to the Portland protest, and either last night or the night before, as a journalist, he was kind of accosted and his phone was taken, and he was ordered, if I remember the story correctly, to repeat the phrase Black Lives Matter in order to get his phone back. And I listened to part of the audio of that exchange, and the first thing I heard is like, this is just Evergreen. This is totally Evergreen. I have the same exact recording of the same exact complete loss and failure of people to channel their energies into something that means anything, and then that builds into anything beyond meaning things. They can't even make sense, let alone a day's labor with the way that they're acting. And it's really sad because there's so much resources, right? I mean, we are going to be entering into a period of austerity because of the, response to COVID, for sure. But into that gap, instead of, uploading themselves into online communities that are tackling problems, instead of studying, instead of figuring out policy, instead of actually understanding what's going on in the world, they are being allowed, and they're not being stopped from just decimating not only the land, but their own lives. Like every hour spent destroying a federal, building is an hour lost, probably more than just an hour if you end up getting put in jail, but like every moment that you spend destroying something is a moment that you've lost that you could have been putting into either creating or learn how to create or learn how to reform or learn how to persuade people into, believing or acting out a different way of living. So it really is kind of sad and stuff, and frustrating too. I guess I'm outraged, but I get outraged about very specific entities. I get outraged about stories that I can understand. And I think I kind of have more or less an understanding of the Evergreen State College story. I don't have that much understanding of what's actually going on in Seattle, what's actually going on in Portland, what's actually going on in Olympia. I only have bits and pieces of those. And I kind of had decided earlier to not really cover those stories because I don't want to add to the confusion. Although it's an opportunity missed as somebody's creating content, right? So let's take a little break. What time is it? 6:23. In 7 minutes, you guys can watch me with my awkward body put the thing together for the fire container to be prepared for the chicken that's in the fridge. You guys can see my process. Maybe I should start setting that up right now. Okay. It's going to be really self-conscious. So don't mind the radio silence. I'm going to just get some lump charcoal. Do you guys know what lump charcoal is? So it's this stuff. You can't really see it in the light. So it's just, it's wood. It's pieces of wood that have been really slowly burned in a oxygen depleted environment. And so it's just these really crystallized chunks of charcoal. And the cool thing about the Kamado is that it's so efficient that you really don't need a lot. It really gets really hot and it maintains the temperature for a very long time if you regulate it correctly. But the other thing is you don't want to use lighter fluid. So I use these things. They're like some sort of fire starter thing. Don't eat them. And you put that there. And you find a lighter. And you light it up. Put a couple more chunks on there. There we go. And then we just let it burn. Thank you for your patience on that account. So now we're just going to let that burn for a bit. I got to get a towel. Yeah. And then we wait. Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. Riordan Penanides. That's an awesome last name. That's like a mixture of something really awesome from a Hindu story and something really awesome from a Greek story. Penanides. He writes, "It's such a shame that these large issues are boiled down to character-limited statements that amount to marketing. But this is the world we live in now." Well, yeah, it really is. I mean, most of us are much bigger than the slogans that we banter on about, but collectively we converge on the marketing term. Collectively we merge upon the banner, right? That's always been the case, but especially now it is the case with regards to different sentences that we say. So within the world of sentences, and this is what I conceive of as Twitter. Twitter is a massively multiple online role-playing game that's built out of sentences. That's basically what it is, right? And the way that people get engaged and keep on going back to Twitter, let's say, is by engaging in different conversations. What's a conversation but a battlefield made out of sentences, right? And you do interact with entities in there, and those entities are like human beings, and they're, performed, or they're created and acted out by human beings, but they're still basically just a photo connected to sentences. That's all, right? Basically. And you kind of, because the imagination is really wonderful and human beings are pretty freaking awesome, we are able to just look at sentences and tie them to a picture and then project a self into that thing. We project an entity into the person that we perceive is communicating to us. Well, and it's not really a person, it's just bits and pieces of a person. It's like a person put through a cheese grater, really, seriously. But over time, you kind of develop feelings towards that person. You also develop feelings towards different issues that you're involved with. Now, the difference between an issue and a person is pretty interesting. I probably should think about that a little bit more rather than just like spouting off about it. But I think that there's a relationship that we form to certain issues that is very similar to a relationship that we form to people, but it's not. There's certain sorts of emotions that are crossover, and there's a certain amount of kind of personality that we project into that issue, and that issue has to do with our conception of how the world should run, or how the world is running, or how the world is running awry. And we start to engage with that in such a way that we start to define ourselves in relationship to that cause, just as we define ourselves subconsciously in relationship toward a person. So I think that it's much easier for us to think of ourselves as distinct from other people, even though that relationship to ourselves is only formed within the gaze of other people. Like, I cannot really discover myself until I speak what I am, and I cannot speak what I am until I project that there's somebody listening out there, right? And to form kind of just a positive relationship to somebody listening to me, watching me, and verifying that I do exist. So there's that feedback loop. But with regards to a cause, when we enter into a cause, right, let's say justice or any given cause that you enter into, I think we kind of slip into not really understanding that we're only, we are creating ourselves in the moment of expression. And to create yourself in the moment of an expression within the container of a single cause will only ever give you a certain sort of bandwidth to really not only express yourself, because only so much is going to be relevant towards that cause, but to know yourself too, right? So if you develop yourself too much into the role of an activist, that will only ever show a certain aspect of your being, right? Whether it is collective solidarity, like it's really, if you kind of like look at activism as kind of a sociological entity and a cultural entity, there's different ways in which people have bonds within that and then do collective actions within that. And what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that people kind of don't really become aware of how much they get swallowed up in a cause. So the Jungian formulation that I'm kind of riffing on here is that people don't have ideas so much as ideas have people. People don't have a cause so much as people are caused. And then in that causing, they become people in relationship to an activity that's borne witness to by somebody that's outside of them, or by a group that's outside of them, that's verifying that they're on the right path, or that they're doing the right thing, or that they are doing something, right? So doing something is infinitely better than not doing anything. Right? And I think that a lot of the young energy that's swept up in the current protests is because they're not employed at doing anything. They're not employed. They're not being seen as living. They can't watch themselves live, and they can't see other people live inside of a freaking house, distinct from everybody else. People are not built like that, right? So it's no wonder that they're going to congregate. The youth have to congregate, right? So they congregate selectively according to what they perceive of as a just cause and what the government perceives of as a cause that serves the government's interests or the powerful, right? With regards to the media, how the media treats them and how the government treats them in these different cities. Really shows what, I don't think that any of this is really necessarily intentional. I think that a lot of the leaders out here are just kind of inept and scheming and playing a game and probably taking orders from further up the democratic chain, perhaps, peut-être. But there's a lot of kind of like just hapless behavior of trying to interact with the world according to the values that they've been elected under, like these democratic social values that are good on the surface. But if you can't enforce a certain level of stability, you can't have a better type of stability, right? You don't take away stability in order to gain more stability. That's the youth's version of a good idea, but it's not actually a good idea, even if you are youth. My brother thinks I'm a straw man. Are we both straw man? Strawman? Okay, so X in Math BBR, damn, that's pretty darn technical, but we'll skip that part and get right to your statement. Comment on Rutgers, de-emphasizing grammar in English classes. This happened at Evergreen. The Writing Center decided that grammar was not a good skill to teach people because it suppressed their bad grammar. And the notion of good and bad are white constructs. So we shouldn't even give people skills. I mean, another reason why I don't want to like just be a channel that churns the stuff that's going on right now is like, I've already covered all of this stuff. It's all there. It's all right there. I've already been talking about it. It's just being replicated by more and more supposed like bigger institutions or more esteemed institutions than freaking Evergreen, but I've already said this, but it's an absolute shame that colleges are refusing to teach people skills under the guise of, like fomenting their culture, because what you have is a bunch of people paying for a degree, trying to go to the workforce, and then realizing that they don't actually have the skills to fit in within this environment. They were only given the skills to change the environment, so they're going to go through and try to change the environment rather than fit in the environment and upset the environment, and the people aren't going to hire them once they see that that's what's happening. They're not going to have any jobs, so they're either going to have to go back to school or pay somebody money to get that skill so they can fit back into something that actually functions, right? Or they'll just live their lives going from one institution to the next, burning it down. And it seems very unfortunately that we have an excess of people who are willing to do that rather than actually learn a skill. Whew. Can you believe that? Is that not just like the stupidest thing? And it's totally like, that's what we're doing, guys. Hold on a second, I gotta go to the next stage. So I gotta put the thing on, close the grates a little bit, get up to temperature. It's pretty good. That's all I owe you, right? No, I owe you guys plenty. So here's to all the people out there who are on YouTube and not burning down things. Here's to all the people out there who have me stuffed inside of their ears instead of some really annoying chant, or even some sort of beautiful song about, saving the world. Maybe those songs are good, I don't know. I tried to listen to one and they really made me cringe. There's just so many things that make me cringe, right? Such a burden on the soul. But I will persist, and I will continue to extract the most elegant, succulent morsels of cringe that are being produced by society. I'll go back to that. I'm kind of just like really interested in actually finishing up the documentary and doing interviews right now. I haven't been feeling like I want to just keep on trolling news to find the latest thing, because I don't think that, I mean, I know that there's a story. I know it's partially my job, but like mental health, you know, do I really want to spend that? Do I want to spend my time dealing with that constantly? So hopefully I'm doing my job to a certain level of degree. But if I was chasing stories, you know, who knows what would happen to me, you know? Maybe that's not what I should do. Maybe people are okay with that. But I ask that out loud, not to be selfish or narcissistic or vain, just to like show you guys that I am thinking about how to serve the YouTube community properly, how I can actually provide content of value, how I can engage with the topics of the day in a way that I find sustainable on a spiritual level and on a mental level and on an emotional level, and that other people will want to continually like kind of show up for and find find useful. So I think that that's just, you know, something that I think of and that I want you guys to know that I'm thinking of. And maybe one or two of you will pop off a comment that I'll see. That'll give me an idea what to do next. Nordstrom says, question, do you get any satisfaction watching the riot videos? Does this validate the message you've been trying to deliver? Now, I don't get any satisfaction from them. And the riot videos are just stupid. The riot videos are stupid. It's the freaking Zoom meetings that drive me up a wall. It's the freaking city council stuff and like the diversity education things. It's okay. So this is the stage we're in. This is 2020. Okay. So first was the rise of the introverts, right? And then revenge of the extroverts, which was like June up to present. But now we're entering into reign of the converts. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in all these freaking priestly cast, the entire priestly cast, watching the rabble rouse and then swooping in their wake of tear gas and implementing all this bureaucratic nonsense and just completely destroying the spirit and the productivity of my country. That's like what I'm really worried about. And so like exposing that stuff to me doesn't necessarily satisfy me. It worries me, but like in that New York Council meeting that I covered a couple or 3 weeks ago, where the guy was yelled at for bouncing a brown baby on his white knee, you know? like that like amazed me and astounded me. I guess I didn't take any satisfaction and that's what happened, but I did use that to reiterate my supposition and to try to forward my conception of the matter, that this stuff is actually, all it does is enable and trigger narcissistic sociopathism, right? Not necessarily narcissistic sociopaths as individuals, but the same traits come to the fore. That's what it does. So that stuff was satisfying in order to, you know, kind of move the marker and give me more material to really explicitly say to people who doubt me about what is called, heavy quotes here, anti-racism is not actually anti-racism. It's actually not. It's anti-anything except for what it wants, which is power, 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 power. Dressed up as, you know, shuffling around different sorts of colored sheep, but it's all wolves. It's all wolves. Anyways. So, rise of the introverts, revenge of the extroverts, reign of the converts. And then if Ghislaine Maxwell actually goes to trial, then it's fall of the perverts. But we'll see if that happens. I don't know her name. Giselle? You know, that one person who hasn't killed themselves? Epstein's broad, second in command person? Like the Darth Vader of that whole thing situation? I don't know what she would have been in that situation. One day we'll have a movie. I probably won't watch it though. Hey, life is good, guys. I am now going to go on to chicken making time. I have a couple more minutes. Let's see if there's anything else for me to say. Oh, there was a super duper chat. Thank you, Maggie Ellis. Benjamin, I see your Evergreen series as the most on the nose microcosm of what we're seeing all over the West, so I'm pimping you out like mad. Thanks, Maggie. You know, I have to say this not for my own sake, but for everybody's sake that's doing this kind of content. When you pick up that national news story, when you look at the CNN or Fox News or the Huffington Post or the Guardian or any of these outlets, and you're not buying it, don't pay for it. Support your independent media creators. Like, you know, even if it's $5 and like split that $5 5 ways. Find the voices that are important to you and really support them. And I'm not saying support me. I really appreciate that. Actually, I couldn't do it without that support, but I'm just talking about the entire apparatus of getting information out there and to you. Like, if you're not buying it, don't pay for it. Pay for what you buy, right? Just want to put that out there. I think there's a lot of creators out there that they're doing a lot of good work, and that there's a lot of media stuff that are floundering for money, but they're being bankrolled. So if you don't like the news that's being paid for, and you're not buying it anyways, you know, support those who you trust. And, you know, of course, comment on their stuff and tell them when they're getting fishy. We appreciate that too, insofar as we're able to listen to you in our high proud, mighty, basement rooms, back porches, and green screens. Anyways, I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people who are creating media and to you guys, the audience. I mean, this stuff is not possible without you guys as the audience. So I do actually want to be just like very explicitly grateful for being supported by actual living people directly and being able to be independent in this way and being able to just follow my nose. This has been an absolute, just absolute, completely stunning turn in my life as a life story. So I just want to say I really appreciate you guys for doing that. And I think it's time to get this chicken going. Get this chicken going. Get this chicken going. Life isn't that bad. There's just people that want it to be that way. Thank you, Monk. I have followed you for a few years. Thanks, Monk. I don't recognize your photo. If this is our first interaction directly, thanks, man. Jessica says I was ordered this. Okay, I'm losing my virility of directness because my blood sugar's dropping and it's going to tank soon if I don't get another beer in me. I know it's cheating. I rely on the sugar more than the alcohol to get me to the dinner at this point. So I'm going to get the chicken grill going. You guys have a good time out there. We're going to have a miniature heat wave out here, so you guys keep cool, calm, and collected. This is Benjamin Boyce signing off on, I can't even remember what day it is. I think it's Friday. Yeah, garbage came today, so it's Friday. So you guys have a good weekend. I'll talk to you soon.